Hi, welcome to Physician Prompt Engineering. I'm so excited to share with you a new way to get our documentation done. It has been such an exciting thing for this burden to finally get lifted and replaced by something that's just better, and I'm really excited to share it with you today. So to start as a baseline, just talk briefly about what we've been doing for a long time. The way we get our charting done, as you know, is you pull up the note in the computer, and there's some sort of template there. It's probably from your hospital or your group or something. It's just the default thing that's there. And then we have these dot phrases that are our blurbs that are the things we typically say when we do the things we typically do, be it health supervision visits, well checks, adult checks, whatever you do, sick visits, if you're inpatient, your HMPs, your progress notes, your discharge summaries. But the key is it's common conditions. It's the things you do all the time. You've got your little blurbs that are typically the things you say about the fact that you did the things that you normally do. And it is what it is. Which for most people it's the hardest part of our job, is just this relentless need to document everything. It pours, we have to pour so much of our energy into it just to get through the day. But I'm here to talk to you about a new opportunity, a new way to do the same work faster and better and with less energy. But this was not possible until very recently. What does it look like? Well, you start off with just having a normal conversation in the room. And then you have a scribe tool listen to that conversation and write down everything that's said. These AI scribes might sound fancy or intimidating because it's just AI, large language models, all these things are kind of new. It sounds just like a lot. But if you think about it, this has been on your phone for a while. Like if you want to send a text message with your voice, you can do that. If you want to kind of read a voicemail before you listen to the actual message, you can do that. This is just that. They've gotten better recently, but it's that, but just taken to another level and then just kind of refined and polished for healthcare. And then the main innovation that I'm here to present to you is you take that output, which it might be a transcript or it might actually be a first draft of a medical note, depending on the product you're using, and then you run a new prompt over it using a large language model to take that output and make it exactly what you want to see. You tailor it exactly to your preferences. And so what it ends up being is your actual experience is you just see the patient, you come out and your note's done. You review it, make sure it's what you want to see, and then you move on. It's beautiful. Just dive right in. Here's an example. This is not a real case because of HIPAA, but this is exactly the type of format that my scribe tool puts out. And so fake case, fake patient, but like authentic type of content. And then I ran my prompt over it for my assessment and plan, and it took the default scribe output on the left and it gave me the thing on the right. You'll notice that it recognized that it was a well child check, so it put in my blurb that I put in with my well child checks, and it did that. And guess what? It can do more. But that alone, that is the main thing I'm here to present to you today. And you can make it do all sorts of things. Whatever you like your notes to be, maybe you like longer sentences, maybe you like paragraphs, maybe you like all sorts of things. You can do that. Whatever it is you want to do, all we have to do is figure out how to describe it using plain English, and we can get it to do it. It's awesome. So that's an assessment and plan prompt. This is a billing prompt. So this is a billing prompt. It takes the same input from the scribe on the left, and then it analyzes it and tries to write out what the code should be. And in this case, it got it right. It does really well, really well. And check that page out if you are interested in that more. And then an after visit summary. I, for this one, wrote out a list of kind of examples of nice little notes that I would like wish my patients well with, and then it takes those examples and mixes it with the details of the note, and it creates like a little sign off, and then it lets me pick. And what I actually do in my workflow is I take this and then I personalize it further. But it's a great example of the new type of opportunities that are available when you suddenly aren't getting crushed by your documentation all the time. Like we were barely getting our notes done, barely surviving earlier. Definitely couldn't like add personal touches. So for this prompt in particular, it makes one sentence that is about the details of the visit we discussed, one that just kind of looks at the relationship, is kind of affirmative and just says, we're here for you, and then one that is looking forward, like it looks at the future, and then it kicks out a simple to-do list for the family based on what we talked about. Might sound complicated, might sound intimidating. I don't want you to be intimidated, though. Want you to focus on just that, like, this is now possible. And it's actually, here's the thing, it's easier than what you've been doing. Before we really dive in, I want to talk about, the fundamentals of what we've been all doing for a long time, just to make sure we're on the same page, right? So when we talk about efficiency in clinic, when we talk about getting your documentation done in a timely manner, again, we kind of have been doing these smart phrases for a long time. A lot of people say if you find yourself typing something more than 2 or 3 times, it's worth it to save it as a dot phrase. I definitely think your most common things, it's super high return on investment potentially. But there's a kind of a fundamental flaw. And it gets back to what we just talked about, where by definition, these are the things that are common. And while it is important to always, of course, document what we do for billing, for liability, just because it's the right thing to do is write down what we did, those things that are common are by definition the things that are not nearly as useful for the physician who's using the chart after you. What we all really want from each other is just our actual thought process. And most of that is like, what makes this person unique? What is it that you had to actually think about with this person? What went into this decision? And that's by definition not going to be in your smart phrase. And so what this means is that no matter how good your smart phrases are, every patient, you need to manually enter this part for the rest of us to find your charting useful. We all can see that you also have a good blurb for kids for anyone who comes in with the flu, but that's not helpful to me when I'm taking care of your patients. I want to know what made this person different and what your thought process was. So you're capped at how fast you can get that in the computer. And some people like to dictate. I was a big fan before doing this change. But regardless, that's a lot of time for each person you have to put in there. But moving on to other things that a lot of folks look at, it's definitely a team sport. Regardless of your setting, but if you're in the outpatient setting like me, your medical assistant is truly probably the number one factor in terms of how efficient your clinic is. And using a good team model where you're letting everyone practice to the top of their license can make a huge difference. If you're doing things that your MAs can do for you, that's already just a huge win that we can take more of a look at. And background note template optimization. Many people that I've worked with over my career continue to use the default note that the whole clinic or hospital uses, and they have not changed it for themselves at all. And every day they enter the same dot phrases into that background template when they could just put it there and not have to touch it again. So that's definitely a really good opportunity that lots of people could take advantage of. Smart lists. These are the drop down menus, and I'll have an example of this in a second, where the drop down menu can show you what give you things you can click on to like move through common templates faster to customize them. I'll show an example of that in a minute. And of course we have our macros for getting our physical exams in, and we have order sets that, it's really nice to be able to type in just cholesterol labs and have things pop up or anything like that and not have to type them all in each time. Talk about smart lists real quick. This is kind of what that looks like, where this is like a sick blurb that I have where, I use this paragraph all the time and I can customize it to what I actually said in the room quickly. Adding these drop-down menus is not too hard to do. And it really helps when your top 5, top 10 dot phrases all have these drop-down lists in it. It can help you go a lot faster. It just takes a little bit of time on the front end. In a similar note, something that I've really enjoyed has been this idea of like having a base big master smart list that I kind of call my tree, and then I have my most common smart phrases come off it as like kind of tree branches, if you will. Again, a lot of people are putting the same couple of templates in most of their notes every time. It's so much nicer just to stick this guy in your base template. It's always there. If you ever want one of your main ones, you just click on it, click the one you want. If not, you just hit one stroke and delete it. It's been a really great addition that I highly recommend to you. So these old tools, they're still helpful. This is still a place that I think almost everyone feels like they could always like find more room to improve. I think almost everyone ends up with this sense that like they could make things even more optimized. And it's hard because like a lot of these tools, like you could really optimize it, but if you're going to really make something custom for like most things that you do, like we see a lot of different conditions, we do a lot of different things. That's part of what makes our job so great. But if you have to really template those all out, it's a ton of work and it changes over time. And so definitely think it's still worth our time to try to think through these things and work on these things. But I'm here today to show you a different way to start. The new way to do this is so much easier. The onboarding for it is so much more simple. And if you're going to put your energy into somewhere, I really encourage you to check this out. So again, we talk in the room. The scribe tool writes it down. The prompt takes that output, makes it what we want to see, and then we just read through it and make sure it's what we want to see. In terms of clicks, this is literally like typically you just have your phone out, you hit a button on your phone, it listens, you get out of the room, you pull up your note. Running the prompt, at least in Epic right now, takes about 3 clicks, and then you just review it and sign it. Is it hard to learn? Well, you say large language models, you say artificial intelligence, you say all these things, and since it's all such new technology, it makes everyone nervous. And it sounds very intimidating. It sounds like it just sounds like a lot. Okay, and it's definitely new, it's definitely different. There's a lot of hype about these things. And the way I would encourage you to reframe it is it's a lot like the subway. If you've ever been in New York City or somewhere with a really good subway system, it's big, it's confusing, there's all these maps, it can be a lot to kind of take in. But the reality of a subway is when you get on the subway, you really just need to know the train you're getting on, and you just get on it and you go there. And as you're going, unlike driving a car where you're having to constantly pay attention and keep doing things, with the subway you just are sitting there, so you have time and bandwidth to do other things. You can read a book, you can call someone on the phone, there's all sorts of things you can do. And this workflow is like that. If you get the prompt that you want, that's your train, and you just use it. And if you were interested, which obviously that's part of why this site is here, is to teach more about how to customize these things. Just you can get pretty deep into the nuance of this, but if you just take some of these prompts, use them yourself, you don't have to get in the weeds of how it works. And if you do get in the weeds of how it works, I think you'll find it's still arguably a lot easier than trying to template out every possible scenario. So to compare the old versus the new, this is quicker, it's easier. In terms of the detail, this is not something that was ever possible. You really can get everything that's said, which is amazing. And in terms of your assessment and plan, you can really capture your whole thought process. So the sicker the patient is, the more complex it is, this becomes even more valuable. So with these new tools, I really am convinced that everyone should have new goals. I think you should absolutely have a goal that you just passively use this scribe, and that the note that's presented to you should be exactly what you want to see over 95% of the time. This means there's no pajama time anymore. This means we get to be fully present. We're in the room with our patients. And it's just so much better, from a burnout perspective. I got to tell you, since I started doing this, I really have more energy at the end of the day. It's a remarkable change. And then the second goal, I really think that long term, this will enable us to really kind of break up with our old relationship with these computers and kind of reframe, redefine that interaction to be back to what it should be, which is a helpful tool, not a burden, not the focus of our energy during the day, not the thing hanging over our head or in the back of our mind. Just another tool like our stethoscope that helps us take great care of patients. And then this gets to just the real why of why I'm encouraging you to consider this workflow. When you don't have to document what's being said, there's a part of your brain that gets to now focus on your patient. And I didn't have any appreciation for this until I started it. I didn't know that part of my brain was remembering that the person's vomiting started 4 days ago instead of 3, and that the rash started 1 day ago, but the fever started 2 days ago. There was a secretary part of my brain that was trying to hold all those details until I could write them down. And then it accumulates throughout the day if you're not getting your notes done as you go, which is the case for most of us most of the time, because there's always things that happen that take longer than they should. And wow, to be able to practice medicine fully focused on the person in front of me is such a gift. And it's just better. Like, I can bring better critical thought, a better empathy, better listening skills, just a better version of my work into the room when I'm not having to split it between multiple tasks. And it makes me think about Chick-fil-A. A lot of drive-through restaurants, a lot of fast food, do it all the same way. And then you have these Chick-fil-A restaurants that are just these incredible machines that are doing the same type of task, but with a better system and with better service, with better outcomes. And by fundamentally improving the system, you can get a fundamentally better just experience for everyone. And I think when we do healthcare, at the end of the day, it just comes back to providing excellent care for our patients. And this workflow can help you raise the bar by giving your best self to the actual tasks that demand your attention, the medicine, the people. So what does it look like? Step by step, your scribe tool, there's a lot of them out there. Documentation is offering one for free right now. I'd encourage you to check that out. Make sure it's approved by your IT department, of course. Things have to be HIPAA compliant and whatnot. Most of the ones you pay for, what you're really paying for is that it's already integrated with your chart, with your EMR, and you're not having to copy and paste things. I would encourage you to try out Documentation first, though. You might be very pleasantly surprised that you don't really need anything past that free one. Another hurdle for some folks is just getting consent in the room. I will say this felt awkward to me the first couple times I did it, until I realized that people are so accustomed to us not being able to talk to them that when they realize you're not going to be typing, people just kind of light up. And so what I typically just say is, hey, is it okay with you if I record our conversation to go in the chart? It helps me not have to type as much while we talk. And the vast majority of people, like, you can tell it's just a win. It's like, wow, this person actually gets to talk to me, which is great. You do the visit, enjoy the freedom. I will say, like, give yourself some practice, right? I mean, every other part of our job we've done 1,000,000 times. It took years to get comfortable doing. Give this one more than one shot, give it some practice. Similar, like, exam for me, like, I used to not really ever say very many of my exam findings out loud. So it was a bit of a shift for me to say the pertinent positive negatives out loud so that the scribe could pick it up. But I've come to find that the families actually really appreciate it too. Without this in the past, I always tried to document my exam before moving on to the next patient as a minimum, just because I knew it was hard to recall those details. And this tool has made it so I can just, say things and then kind of come back, and I can often clear the chart before moving on, just because it's all so fast. But if I want to, I can see several patients in a row and then review all their notes at once, just because it's pretty seamless. And it's really nice not having to feel like I have to really, like, again, use a part of my working memory to hold on to exactly, where that rash was. Not my assessment, not like the deep level of thinking, but just those surface level details that kind of end up taking up space. And then finally, a lot of the scribe tools will talk about summarizing the conversation at the end. I found that, this just naturally happens in conversations with family. So you'll end up doing this without even meaning to. But as you practice with the tools, you'll find that there will be some situations where you're like, yeah, that might have been a part that was hard for the scribe to pick up the right thing. And if you kind of at the end run through things with the family, or after you get out of the room, just run through it as if you're doing like a rounds handoff, like a very quick 20-second. We talked about pneumonia. We're going to start the antibiotics. We're going to do the things that we're going to do in this order. It will, like, reframe it. Large language models have a natural bias towards the things in the beginning and the end of the conversation. And so we get to take advantage of that, and that often will clean things up. Also, if you ever see something that you don't want to see, often if you re-record a separate little blurb at the end, a lot of times that's even faster than manually fixing it, and it will often get it right with just that summary piece. And this part, again, just gets a lot easier with practice, but I got to tell you that most of my visits, I'm not thinking about the scribe at all. Most of them, it does great without me having to think about it at all. I'm truly just doing what I'm doing with the patient and moving on. Orders and exam, I would encourage you to start this workflow when you're getting used to it, to just do what you've always done. There's no need to change everything at once. There is opportunity here, which is really cool. But again, I would just, change one thing at a time as much as you can. And for your exam and your orders, I think especially up front, you'll find more confidence if you just do what you've always done to get those things documented. And then if you end up feeling more comfortable, this is a place you can come back and can optimize it, because it's absolutely possible for it to be essentially automated. But for now, just I would encourage you to leave this as like in the future type of thing. And then just reading it and signing it. So it is just part of doing this, is there's an acknowledgement that you're changing your core task from like actually like writing everything out from scratch to like reviewing it. And so you're taking on the responsibility of reviewing it and signing off on it. But again, if that prompt is set up the way that you actually want it, it should just feel extremely natural. I felt a lot more friction with this as I was refining my prompt, especially before I even knew what I really wanted, because I was looking at the scribe output and I was just like, this isn't what I want. This is okay, but it's not great. And like getting that prompt from okay and working to good and then to great is what made this kind of disappear for me. So again, your goal should be 95%, don't need anything. These tools, the errors I've experienced the most, sometimes it'll mishear things, but honestly, whenever it mishears things, it's situations where like I can barely understand what's happening either, because the toddler is screaming at the top of their lungs, or like there's something else going on. If a normal person can hear it, this tool probably can write it down better than that person can hear it. Again, running through a summary at the end really helps. If you realize that in the room, like, yeah, that person was screaming while that person said that, just run through a summary at the end, it'll fix it. The other thing I see sometimes is it doesn't have a great ability at the moment to distinguish like which voice is the voice of authority, if that makes sense. And so the tools will often write down like, this person is the person who said this person's the one who said this, in the transcript, so it knows who's talking. But if like the parent throws out there like, the reason they got pneumonia was because they were out in the rain 2 days ago, and I know you get out in the rain, you're gonna get pneumonia. It will put that in your assessment, like as if that was like your thought process. So that's something I've come to watch for, but it only ends up happening probably like once a week. I catch an error like that. So again, at the end of the day, it's really not very much. So it's getting your scribe tool working, which your IT department should be able to help set you up with. Usually once it's set up, you just are hitting 1 or 2 buttons to get it going. Setting up your prompt, that's what this website's for. Take one of our prompts, run with it. As you use it, you'll find things that you want different, especially if you're in a different specialty than me. There might be things you want. The hope is to create a community that together makes prompts that can help most anyone. So I'd encourage you, as you start to iterate, if you're willing to share back to the community, we would really appreciate it. Just check us out on GitHub. Thank you for your time. Best of luck. Feel free to drop comments, anything we can help you navigate. Or there's the discussion board on GitHub also. Thank you.